shooting. I think grouse is one of the things which people say, and pheasant shooting, which goes on a lot in these areas as well. All of which have had quite an impact on the landscape of an area. Around here, for example, pheasant shooting is one of the reasons why there's even old woodlands left, because I mean they would have been left for the birds at some point. So if you were to go into a situation where because obviously pheasants being released are semi livestock or whatever it may be anyway. So in reduction of pheasants, sheep, and going back to trees and everything else, it in one sense obviously it gains in biodiversity, but it loses its tourism value in that way, and you've then lost a significant amount of income to rural economies, which is one of the things which comes up when grouse shooting is in the news. Is how would you replace that rural economy income, even though it's not to individuals, it comes to pubs which may have not only had a handful of guests, and now they've got 30 because they've had a shooting party in, or there was a small pub down the road who's had hikers because they've been going around the Cotswolds come in and gone shopping in the local deli and so on. All of these places rely on bringing all those people in because of the way in which it's structured at the minute. So obviously again, it's going to be slow, but
again, that's a super important point, because we're in a situation where, I mean, yes, these things do contribute to rural economy at the moment, but you mentioned you mentioned tourism income. Most of the landscape in the UK, because it's so heavily farmed and so inaccessible to people, has very little tourism value. There are certain areas and regions of the UK where the tourism value could massively increase by moving towards these more, by essentially reforming the way that we manage the land. You mentioned shooting. Obviously, grouse shooting is not vegan, but again, it's a form of livestock. These animals are being introduced, and the habitat has been managed in such a way to maximise the grouse population at the expense of other.
Grouse I don't think are introduced to, are they? Grouse are native.
Oh, pheasants, sorry. Pheasants, I'm thinking of grouse moors, but it's a similar situation. So where on a grouse moor you're managing for red grouse at the expense of a whole variety of other wildlife that could be there. You're optimizing the conditions for a specific species, and so I would challenge the idea that the loss of that tourism is somehow not worth it for the potential gain of a much more vibrant tourism sector that doesn't just involve a handful of very wealthy individuals accessing, but actually gives access to a lot more people. Can get onto the land and can make these rural economies more vibrant.
Sure, yeah. I mean, obviously, though, then there has to be a way of getting that money into the local people's hands. I mean, are we, having heard you just there, I do actually accept that those examples were probably very niche, given that I was thinking about where I live here, given that Burford entirely relies on tourism for people coming to the Cotswolds from London, Birmingham, wherever. And obviously they come to see the town and go on hike and so on. But those people who come during the winter, for example, and do spend a lot of money to replace that, I think would be quite hard, certainly very, very quickly. I mean, people love the Cotswolds in the summer, and they still do in the winter, but not quite as much. And especially this year, businesses are starting to struggle from it. I mean, it's just, I mean, obviously when I always give these examples, I always think of where I live here, just in the sense of how things are going to change. I suppose it was obviously thinking just in one tiny part of the UK.
And in terms of winter tourism, I mean, so sure, there's challenges. I definitely believe, on balance, there is a better balance to be struck between productive land management and tourism.